In October 2021, Microsoft unveiled Windows 11, promising a new era, then quietly locked millions out with one technical requirement, TPM 2.0. Suddenly, entire fleets of perfectly working PCs were pushed to the sidelines overnight. What drove Microsoft to gamble its reputation and user base on a single design decision, and what did they know that ordinary users did not? The story behind the chaos is anything but accidental. Microsoft's official launch messaging for Windows 11 centered on security. In October 2021, the company's blog and requirements page described a new baseline. Every device running Windows 11 would need a trusted platform module, known as TPM version 2.0. Microsoft's documentation said TPM is a dedicated chip or firmware component that protects sensitive information like encryption keys and biometric data from attacks that target the system firmware or boot process. The company said this requirement would enable features such as BitLocker drive encryption, Windows Hello passwordless sign-in, and secure boot, all designed to defend against increasingly sophisticated threats. Microsoft painted TPM version 2.0 as a foundational building block for a modern, resilient personal computer ecosystem. The company pointed to a future where credential theft, ransomware, and firmware exploits would be much harder to pull off if users upgraded to compliant hardware. For most consumers, TPM had been invisible. Now Microsoft insisted it was non-negotiable, listing it alongside processor and memory as a minimum system requirement. The official rationale was clear. Windows 11 would only run on devices that could guarantee a certain level of hardware-based protection. For users, this meant checking system settings or running Microsoft's compatibility checker to see if their personal computer had TPM version 2.0 enabled. The message was precise and technical, but the consequences of this new baseline would soon become impossible to ignore. Within days of the Windows 11 announcement, confusion swept across forums and IT help desks. Millions of users discovered their computers, still running smoothly, had been declared ineligible for the upgrade. The official compatibility list excluded any PC that lacked a TPM 2.0 chip or a supported processor, criteria that instantly sidelined most devices built before 2018. For many, the only warning came from Microsoft's own compatibility checker. It delivered a blunt message: this PC can't run Windows 11. In homes and offices, the fallout was immediate. A teacher with a 3-year-old laptop found herself locked out of future updates. Small businesses faced the prospect of replacing entire fleets of workstations, not for performance, but because of a single missing security module. Refurbishers and recyclers reported a surge in donations of perfectly functional hardware, now considered obsolete by software decree. Internal briefings circulated among Microsoft's hardware partners emphasized the need for a modern baseline. Yet the timing raised eyebrows. Industry analysts noted that the 5-year hardware cutoff aligned neatly with typical piece refresh cycles, fueling speculation that the requirements were less about security and more about stimulating sales in a stagnant market. As the scope of exclusion became clear, critics accused Microsoft of manufacturing obsolescence. The company denied any ulterior motive, but the sheer scale, hundreds of millions of PCs left behind, suggested that the true cost of Windows 11 was not measured in features, but in discarded machines and forced upgrades. For users, the message was unmistakable: comply with the new standard or be left out of the future. StatCounter's global tracking lines began to flatten in late 2025. Instead of the surge Microsoft forecast, Windows 11 adoption stalled at just over half the Windows desktop market. By December 2025, the figure hovered at 50.7%, far from the company's internal targets. Dell's own estimates pinpointed 500 million PCs stuck on Windows 10, machines technically capable of upgrading, but left behind by user choice or organizational caution. Another 500 million devices built before 2016 faced hardware barriers they could not clear without costly replacements. The numbers only tell part of the story. In a small design studio in Los Angeles, a creative director weighed her options. Her main workstation, a high-end PC from 2018, failed the Windows 11 compatibility check by a single generation. She switched to a MacBook, citing reliability and the headache of managing unsupported software. Across the country, a hospital systems lead sysadmin negotiated with Microsoft for extended security updates, facing a six-figure bill to keep essential imaging suites running on Windows 10 for another year. In online forums, a retired IT veteran compared the mood to the chaos of the 1980s DOS to Windows transition. He called it a generational break, with users refusing to abandon familiar workflows for what they saw as forced obsolescence. For millions, the decision was not about loyalty or features. It was about cost, risk, and the lack of a compelling reason to move. The result was a digital standstill, with hundreds of millions choosing to stay put, pay for security patches, or quietly migrate to platforms that promise stability without strings attached. Accounts set up for Windows 11 demanded a Microsoft account, not just for online features, but as a non-negotiable step in the installation process. For many, this stripped away the option to create a local offline account, a choice that had defined Windows for decades. Users who preferred privacy or who needed to deploy devices in secure, disconnected environments found themselves forced to submit personal data before even reaching the desktop. Workarounds circulated on forums, but Microsoft closed loopholes in later updates, making the requirement nearly universal for home editions. The arrival of Copilot, Microsoft's AI-powered assistant, added another layer of friction. Promoted as a productivity boost, Copilot inserted itself into workflows, suggesting code, summarizing documents, and even rewriting emails. Reports from power users painted a different picture. Copilot's pop-ups interrupted tasks, slowed down resource-intensive work, and sometimes surfaced private information in its recommendations. Instead of feeling assisted, many felt surveilled, every keystroke and click becoming potential training data for an algorithm they could not fully control. Nothing stoked the backlash like Recall. Announced in 2024, Recall quietly captured screenshots of the active screen every few seconds, storing a searchable archive of user activity. Microsoft claimed all data stayed local and encrypted, but security researchers quickly found gaps. Filters meant to block sensitive information failed, allowing passwords and private messages to slip into the database. Even with BitLocker and TPM protections, forensic experts demonstrated that with physical access, snapshots could be extracted and reconstructed. Privacy advocates warned that Recall turned every PC into a potential evidence locker. One breach could expose months of personal history. A leading privacy researcher summed up the mood. Windows 11 isn't just an operating system anymore. It's a surveillance platform with productivity features tacked on. For a growing segment of users, the issue was no longer about compatibility or cost. It was about trust and whether the platform worked for them or for Microsoft. Microsoft's financial results tell a different story from the user experience. In fiscal year 2025, the company reported $252 billion in revenue, with the bulk coming from cloud services and recurring subscriptions. Analysts point to a clear pattern. Consumer operating systems are no longer the centerpiece of Microsoft's business. Instead, Office 365, Azure, and enterprise contracts drive profits. The $13 billion invested in OpenAI cemented this pivot, fueling the integration of artificial intelligence features like Copilot and Recall across the product line. Independent economists argue that Windows 11's hardware requirements and cloud-linked features act as levers to encourage device turnover and subscription lock-in. The result is a widening gap between Microsoft's revenue engine and the needs of everyday users, undermining trust and fueling the perception that artificial obsolescence has become a deliberate business strategy. A document surfaced online in late 2025 purporting to outline Microsoft's vision for Windows 12. The file, stamped with internal branding, described a tiered subscription system with core operating system access available for a monthly fee and a lower-priced version subsidized by persistent advertising. Screenshots of the alleged slide deck spread quickly, igniting debate among analysts and users. While Microsoft declined to comment, the language echoed patterns already familiar from Office 365 and Xbox Game Pass. Industry trackers noted the timing, just as millions faced decisions about unsupported Windows 10 machines. The rumor alone was enough to rattle IT departments and home users alike, raising the specter of a future where the desktop, once a personal tool, could be rented or revoked at the company's discretion. Today, Microsoft's gamble on stricter control and AI-driven features collides with a user base demanding autonomy and privacy. As software becomes a rented service, the question is no longer about upgrades, but about ownership. The future of computing may depend on who draws that line. What is your take?